Australian Survivor Desktop. I'm Jack, here for our second ever episode. Another episode that just highlights why I have to be doing this, why I can't keep it to myself. The insanity, the lack of reason and logic going on for these contestants is beyond belief. But before we get into that, obviously it would be weird not to talk about Flick's decision and her situation. I think it was a great decision to stay. Would have been incredibly tough. I don't know if I would do it myself. But I have a huge amount of respect for her staying in the game and deciding that she wants to continue playing. So I really enjoyed that. I would have been fully understanding if she wanted to leave. But I think that this was such a cool thing for her to keep doing. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, obviously. Saying goodbye to your mother is something that is a huge sacrifice, and maybe they'll be out. Anyway, we don't need to go into. That's not for us to discuss. But I think it's great that she's decided to stay on. In the aftermath, the tribe was sort of as we expected, right? Danny's on the bottom of the brains 3 now. George does seem to have wielded, at least at the beginning of the episode, or concentrated, or found himself in a slightly better position than I thought. I thought he'd be more on the outer. It seems as though, and the editing makes it tough, we can't always tell. It seems as though George is potentially more in the brains than I had anticipated. Andrew seems to buy into him. We'll talk about Hayley later on. Hayley's playing it too cool at the moment. I think that Hayley's just enjoying not being on the outside looking in. We'll see if that pays off for her. One thing I did find interesting was when George sort of explained to Danny that he was the reason she was still there, that he moved the vote off her. It's such a retrospective thing to say. I don't believe for a second that George sort of had a master plan where he was going to bring Danny in as an ally on the back of not sending Danny home. I think he sent Gerald home because he wanted to be in control of the decision. It had nothing to do with any sort of benefit from keeping Danny around. And I don't think that George is any better off than he was before for that move. In fact, I think as hopefully the accumulation of his chaos is going to catch up with him in the next episode, it looks like. But before we get to that, the challenge, I didn't really rate the challenge situation this time around. I don't like them adding new wrinkles and twists all the time. Twists should be once or twice. I don't mind a full season built around a concept, Ghost Island, Redemption Island, or whatever it was called. I don't mind the different twists on the show if that becomes a part of that season's process. But the chopping and changing, I found the Redemption Rock a bit frustrating in that Baden was sent there on the back of some bizarre twisty thing. Shannon was voted out on the back of a weird thing. I don't mind a twist every now and again, but I think that doing it too much just undermines the show's, the core of what makes the show great is the strategy, which is designed around the rules. And if you keep changing the rules, then the strategy becomes irrelevant. So I don't want to see them do too much of that. I didn't really I didn't mind the idea of this challenge. I wasn't a huge fan of the idea. I thought the execution was even worse. Doing a challenge like that where basically there was Hayley, Emmett, and Andrew were guaranteed to come in the top 3 in that challenge. I think if you're going to do a challenge like that where the bottom 4 are the only ones up for elimination, it's got to be a challenge where everyone has an equal chance of winning. Way was never going to get safe in that challenge. Laura was never going to get safe. Cara was never going to get safe. And Danny was going to have to beat George, so maybe it was going to be a toss-up. But I didn't rate that decision by the producers to do it in that way because there was no tension to the challenge, and it was so prescribed who was going to succeed and who was going to fail there. Kara's chat throughout was really bizarre. I didn't understand where she was coming from. And it's weird, maybe again, the way the show's edited, we didn't see that because I was shocked when Kara's name was thrown out there for the vote. It makes not like I understand that she's sort of George's second in command, and I guess I vaguely understand Andrew's decision to put the votes on Kara being built around her building a lot of relationships and possibly getting votes. But I tend to believe that unless you have done something to deserve winning, you're not going to get votes simply by being nice to people. And yes, I would, if I was Andrew, I would find her empath act completely untenable, unbearable. But at the end of the day, I think that she was never a threat to win. She was a fantastic goat to bring through the end, especially if you could, like, if you ended up at the end with, let's say it was Andrew or Emmett or whoever, with George and Kara, like those two are going to vote for one another, and like that's a signed, sealed, and delivered vote for, like, if Kara was on the jury, you know she's voting for George. So I actually think it was not necessarily a great idea to get rid of her. There was really no, in my mind, there was no reason for her to be the target whatsoever. When you've got Danny there, who really had no means of defending herself. Then, of course, George, like, you've got to credit George, credit where it's due. The guy's a squirmy little rodent. No one else is out there looking for idols or clues the way he is. It's a missed trick, and that's not the one that I'm mentioning on the sheet there. I'll do it. People should be doing more. Other contestants should be doing more. They're letting George fucking run wild and scurry about. And of course, as soon as you get that, you know George is playing it tonight. Like, even if Kara wasn't the target, I'm so positive that he would have gone and done the exact same thing with somebody else, and then possibly used it as a way to build trust with a new person, which may have actually been a better move than what he ended up doing. But George, I get George wanting to keep Kara. Like, once the vote's on Kara, it's actually not the worst move in the world for him to do this. I don't get why he didn't target Danny. It makes no sense to me why he doesn't go, all right, Kara. Well, number one, like, I guess he doesn't trust her enough, or rather doesn't trust. It's not that he doesn't have trust in her. It's that he knows that Kara is a complete liability and is liable to spill the beans and ruin everything. So he had to keep Kara in the dark. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know why he was able to get Kara onto Laura. So I don't know why he wasn't able to get Kara onto Danny and get rid of an actual threat in the game. Like, I think that it is very clear that if George ever gets to the end, if he's faced up with Emmett, if he's faced up with Danny, if he's faced up with Hayley, Hayley less so because he actually did get rid of Hayley at one point, but, you know, he's going to be asked, why didn't you get rid of these big threats? Why didn't you get rid of the people sitting next to you right now? Why did you get rid of Laura, who was no threat to win? Why did you get rid of Gerald, who was no threat to win? So I understand from his perspective, at that point he had to play, or Kara's so loyal to him that it was probably the right move. Just why not target Danny? Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So, leaving that aside, he goes in there and he plays the idol. Everyone's pissed off. Kara is going to tell everyone that she didn't play it for herself. So this is why I think George should have told Kara, I've got an idol. I'm going to play it for you. You need to tell everyone that you played it for yourself. Because that's respectable. That's understandable. People are going to immediately know, and it's pretty evident from the preview, that they figured out that it was George who did it. Because who else would have done that? No one else would have played the idol to save Kara. So, yeah, it's frustrating watching that. The other thing that I thought was a missed trick was, I think, and maybe they have these discussions, they don't show it to us, Emmett, or I really would have loved to see Hayley do this, or even Flick. I think they had the numbers that they could have chucked a vote or two onto someone other than Kara. So Hayley could have got with Way, potentially, could have got with Laura and said, look, if she plays an idol on herself, the person she's voting for is going home, which is possibly going to be you, Laura. So why don't you and I vote for Danny? There'll still be more than enough votes on Cara. If she doesn't play the idols, she's out. And then even if people get upset at you for not sticking with the plan, you say, look, and I mean, if Hayley's worried about rustling feathers, she should say, Andrew, look, if she plays an idol, we need a backup because we don't want her picking off Laura away because they're part of our alliance. So they just lost an alliance member there. So I think that they really missed a trick in that Brains group, not putting 2 votes on Danny, or at least 1 vote on Danny, and then having it go to Fire or something. So Hayley, I think that could have been a great opportunity for Hayley to make a move, and I think she missed a trick there. I thought, like, when you see in the preview of the next episode, George saying, like, well, at least I'm true to myself. Like, well, you're just a pig. Like, you're just a rat. Like, of course you're true to yourself. You've acted like a little rodent the whole time. Like, you are a scheming little bastard. So, like, when you are inherently an insidious, manipulative, deceitful, duplicitous turd, and then you behave like one, you are being true to yourself. And in that context, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for a turd to be a turd. Like, a turd should be trying not to be a turd. So I'm keen for the next episode to see what happens. It would make sense. Finally, everyone's clicked and gone, let's get rid of George. Like, he has to go. These two have just been sitting in the middle, dictating terms the whole time, and we've let them. We have let them do it. And along the way, we've just done dumb shit. So anyway, looking forward to the next episode. Hopefully they finally get their shit together. Get out George. In the last episode, I did say that I thought Emmett would win through. I thought that was a better than 50% chance. He didn't win today, but he did win. So I'm not counting that. I already was incorrect in that, but who knew that sort of challenge twist was coming. So anyway, we'll check back in tomorrow. This has been Australian Survivor Desktop.